Welcome to another episode of repairs to this old 2500 Triumph Mark 1. Now this car's been on a few trips lately, up to Coffs Harbour and back on backcountry roads, dirt roads. So it's done a few Ks, and in the process of giving it a check over and getting the mud out from underneath it, I've discovered a loose wheel bearing on the back driver's side. So let's get it jacked up and see what we can do about it. Okay, from my experience with these 2500s, this rear wheel bearing is the weakest link. Otherwise they're the ruggedest, great old beast of a thing you can have. So I think this is the newest wheel bearing on this car, still a long time ago. There's three real dangers associated with doing what I'm about to do. The first one is down in under here when I get the brake drum off. There's, I think it's 6 reasonably thin bolts that bolt the sort of bearing housing, if you want to call it that. I think the handbrake's on. To this aluminium trailing arm. Now, not so much when you undo them, even though they do strip out as you undo them sometimes. They strip out when you do them up. Now, there's not that much of a tension. I think it's about 15 pound, I think, from memory, maybe 14, something like that. Nevertheless, they strip out. And I'm pretty sure I've helicoiled all of them. And I don't know whether it's this side or that side, or I don't actually remember whether it's my father's other car. One of the helicoils stripped out and had to put a bigger bolt in. And because the head of the bolt was too big, it had to be an Allen-headed bolt. So there's always this worry that when you're doing them up, they're going to strip out and you've got to deal with that. It's not that hard of a deal with, but it is a problem. The other problem is, and when I get it out I'll show it to you, that there's these two great big nuts that adjust the wheel bearing. And they're too big to get any sort of spanner on, so you hit them with a drift. But it has sort of just tabs that bend over when you lock them in place. Now those tabs fatigue as every time you adjust them, you bend them. And you can get to the point where you go to adjust it and there's no tab to bend over because they've all broken off. And that means you've got to pull the whole thing apart, which means... And I've never actually had one apart because you need a massive press to get them apart. And so they've always gone to a Triumph specialist to do that, which we're running out of Triumph specialists. So that's the other worry that when you're doing it. The other worry is when you're doing it up, like when the wheel's on here, you can clunk, clunk, clunk it back and you can feel there's movement. When you got it in the vise, you can't do that. So you sort of adjust it and it's sort of guesswork, and if you adjust it too far, that's when you're going to have problems down the line a bit. Now, I'm pretty sure TR6s have a very similar setup, and I've seen 2 TR6s fall over at Eastern Creek because the whole wheel's come off because I think if they're too tight, maybe the stub axle fatigues or something. I'm not sure what actually goes wrong, but everything comes up. And yeah, one TR6 was a race car and had a roll cage in it, and it just flipped over, and dramatic, but not anyone hurt. The other one was a road car, and it was just sheer luck. The guy sort of managed to fall over onto the passenger seat, and because it was just a flat, upside down TR6. And it was that way for quite a while till we could find well, not me, but the organisers could find a tractor to flip it up the right way. So you're always worried after you've done this on whether it's going to... Having said that, at one point there was 3 of these cars in the family, and I was forever doing this sort of thing, and I've never had a problem, other than the one with this car. I think it was this side, and that just got noisy, and it was just worn out. It wasn't a over adjustment problem. So let's get the handbrake off and get this drum off. Now, as exposure to nasty things go, I'm a dead man walking. I've spent a lifetime of mucking around with cars and asbestos brake linings, and in the days when it wasn't considered a danger. And you know, I've been in mechanic shops where they get the compressor out at this point and blow all the dust off. I used to motor carner a lot in a Mini, and the day before the motor carner you'd be pulling all this off and cleaning up all the brake shoes with rough sandpaper, and then without a compressor going to blow the dust away. So nevertheless, at this point in time, I'm a bit more safety conscious. So this is brake clean stuff. This is just going to get rid of all the dust. Alrighty, the next problem is to undo the 4 bolts that hold the drive shaft on to the diff. Now this car is fitted with a conversion. It's the Datsun drive shaft conversion. It's still the Triumph wheel bearing housing and what have you. It's just the universal joints and this drive shaft that's different. It gets rid of that Triumph wobble that you get when the splines get worn. Something Triumph should have done a long time ago, but never did. Now, as I understand it, there is a fancy conversion for the wheel bearing as well, but it's expensive, and this car is not my main priority car, even though perhaps it should be, but so it's not actually on my list of to-do items. Alright, let's undo this bearing housing now. It mostly alright undoing them. It's the doing them up part that can give you the grief. Now, I was thinking that my memory, this is a stud arrangement, but they're a nylon headed sort of nut, and quite often the stud comes out. But I got a sneaking suspicion I Loctited them in. So with a bit of luck the nuts only will come off. No logic to me thinking that that helps in relation to stripping them out, but just feels that way, I think. Alright, that's all the bolts undone, or nuts. This whole shaft bearing housing should come out. Might need a bit of persuasion. Could swear I had a big screwdriver here somewhere. Let's get it up on the bench and see what's what. Well, normally you can't feel the movement in these once you get them out without the leverage of the wheel on the car, but in this case, probably can't hear it on the camera, but certainly feel and hear the movement there. Don't like the look of this, which is muck that's come out of it. Don't like the look of that at all, actually. Alright, I have decided to adjust it. Had a bit of a consult with a fellow Triumph owner, and we think it'll be fine. So we'll adjust it and then keep an eye on it and see what happens. So let's bend this tab back. That's the next danger. This has got two big nuts, and I don't have a spanner, and if I did, I think they'd be too wide to get in there. I don't know, but I've always just drifted them around. So let's loosen this locking one off, see if this other one will tighten up at all. Well, it's always difficult at this point because if you over tighten it, you're in a world of pain. If you don't tighten it up enough, put it in the car with the leverage of the wheel on, it's still got movement. You've got to pull the whole thing out again. Every time you do those bolts up into the aluminium trailing arm, there's the risk of stripping them. Every time you bend this tab over, there's a risk of breaking it. So it gets very... I don't know what to do. Now that feels pretty good. I'd rather have a little bit loose and a little bit tight. Now I've got a price on putting new wheel bearings in this, all up with me giving this whole assembly to somebody and them doing the job. About $550. Now if I wanted to do both sides, that'd be obviously $1,100. For twice that money, you get a whole, you can buy the whole adaptation, which is a manufactured hub here, which has got I think a different bearing arrangement, new stub axle or axle, and then they replace these uni joints with CV joints. So it's a pretty good deal really, and I'm not sure, you know, if you're gonna put new wheel bearings in, I'd be tempted to go for the all singing, all dancing CV joint arrangement and better wheel bearing arrangement. But at this point in time, I think I'll just adjust it up and see how we go. I'm happy with that. Let's get this locking nut done up. at this point in mucking around with these rear wheel bearings, I'm never happy. I'm always thinking, oh, this thing's gonna foul or freeze up on me because it's over tight or it's too loose or whatever. At the end of the day, you just got to go with your gut and put it together and hope for the best. Now it's time to put this axle and bearing housing back together. As much as these nuts that I'm about to put on, which have a torque of 12 to 14 foot-pounds, and the danger is that they strip out. You end up having to helicoil them. Well, I've already helicoiled them, as far as my memory serves. So this is the next worrying stage. And of course, the next few hundred kilometres will also be a worrying stage to whether I over tightened that bearing or not. I am giving some thought to the fancy sort of conversion. I'll give it some thought. Torque wrench is hard pressed going down that far. 10 seems to be about the lowest it wants to go. Oh no, it's alright. Do it at 6 for now. That's that done up without stripping anything. Joy and happiness. Next it's in under there to have a go at that where the uni joint bolts to the diff. One thing I'll say about 2500 Triumphs is just about everything's easy to do. You can get to everything. And like this whole job here is quite simple. You know, other than the worries about the various things that could go wrong, but in terms of actually getting to the nuts, bolts, etc., it's all pretty good. Not like the dolly. You even get ring spanners on both sides of these nuts, which you can't do on the dolly, on the tail shafts. You've got to use an open ender on one end and a ring on the other, which is always adds to the adventure. Well, that's those bolts done up. Well, I suppose I could be all adventurous and not just do the CB joint conversion, but the disc brake conversion as well. What am I, a millionaire? Well, for the eagle-eyed amongst you may notice that it's got the road tyres back on it again. I did that the other day when I cleaned it up from all its dirt road running. Road tyres are really good on the dirt, but they're not that great on the bitumen. Seem to make the steering quite heavy as well. Well, that's just about it for this episode of repairs to this poor old Mark 1 Triumph, where we adjusted the rear wheel bearing, and hopefully that's going to turn out correct and not bugger up on me. Trust in your luck. And well, that's about it. So tune in, same duck time, same duck channel, for more mechanical mayhem on this poor old Mark 1. Bye for now.